Good afternoon. I'm Mark Allen with Gaper.io, and I'm here today with Helena Merk, the CEO of Glimpse. Good afternoon, Helena.
Good afternoon. Excited to be here.
Great. We're glad you could make it. So can you share a brief background of yourself and your work experience?
Yeah, I'd love to. Myself, I grew up in the Bay Area. I was one of those kids that was coding in middle school, building my own apps, mostly because actually my parents were pretty anti-tech. They didn't want me on my screen. I didn't get screen time until like late in high school. And the only way of really diving into technology was to kind of build my own. So I got into app development mostly because I wanted apps, and it was an excuse to, use my dad's fancy new iPhone. And then in high school, I realized I could do a lot more than just build games, which I had gotten into in middle school. And I decided to work with animal shelters and increase adoption rates by providing these tools for volunteers at animal shelters. And in building that company, learned a lot about entrepreneurship and product and working with people and getting constant customer feedback. And then for whatever reason, decided to work at this cloud security company, all still in high school. Realized pretty quickly that cloud security was not where I wanted to, dedicate my life to. And got jaded already. I was like, 16 or 17 at the time at big tech, and knew that I didn't want to, work at a Google or a Facebook or an Amazon. And I really wanted to start my own company. But college seemed like the logical decision at the time. So I decided to look at how to combine my interest in like biology and healthcare with technology. And biomedical engineering seemed like, a good path. So I applied to Duke for their BME program. Turns out engineering moves a lot slower than the tech world. So that didn't last long. I decided to switch out of that real quick after one semester, study global health and CS instead. Again, I want to say that didn't last long. I decided to leave school, drop out, you might say, a year and a half in. So this is halfway through my sophomore year, January 2019. I left first as an intern, but then that within a month turned into a full-time opportunity at a company down mountain. I led their efforts in rolling out webhooks and then also increasing reliability across their adapters, which was an amazing experience. And this was like a 20-person team I was joining. Super exciting, but it's part of that transition was that like social jump from leaving this like mecca of social interaction to suddenly like working 10-hour days and moved back home to my parents' house. And that was really challenging. And that's kind of where my personal passion for working in like the social space really came from, and addressing problems in terms of like human connection and relationships.
Wow, that's quite a lot for someone at your age, which I know is in your young 20s. That's very impressive. So what has been your experience with remote employment, both as a remote employee and a remote employer, now that you're the CEO of the company?
It's definitely a change in pace. You have to figure out like different ways of motivating yourself and motivating the people you're employing. And communication is constantly a challenge. I think we are, some way at an advantage because our own product is a communication platform, and we dog food our own product a lot. So we get a lot of FaceTime, and we can check in with each other a lot. But the challenge is of how do you keep people motivated while remote is still there.
Oh, yeah, obviously. And when did you start your company? Just out of curiosity.
We started kind of unofficially in August. But this was like me working on weekends and nights, and my co-founder doing this while he was still a student. And then in December, I decided to leave my old job and work on this full time, which is largely catalyzed by us getting into Y Combinator.
Yeah, cool. So what do you think is the future of remote employment? And do you think there's anything that can be done differently to make it more effective?
I think there's a lot of things to be able to make it more effective. I think one big problem in remote employment is that most communication is asynchronous. And it's this like internal debate I have, because I think asynchronicity can lead to a lot of efficiency, but efficiency often doesn't lead to like greater employee satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
And especially thinking about like the tech world, there, like everyone is always hiring. I think now we're in an interesting time, but there's like a lack in good skill set, and people will be drawn to places with amazing culture. And it's really hard for remote workplaces to compete on culture, and finding a way of pulling people in, and competing with, you know, in-person workplaces is difficult.
Yeah, I mean, look at Google, 3
Right.
square meals a day. I know my daughter works there. So she takes advantage of it. So what's the story behind Glimpse, and what's the journey been like since August?
It's been tons of fun. We started as a platform where you would meet offline. I think the strongest relationships you can have, the strongest interactions are going to be face-to-face in the real world. Video is the closest to it. But I don't think it will ever get to that point where I think tech isn't there yet. It might be like some combination of like VR and AR and like suits we put on or something like that. But we started building this platform where you would meet once a week offline for a meal with a stranger. And we built this psychometric analysis model where you would meet based on your personality assessment, and we would find a time and a place and really try to like refine that entire interaction, kind of like a concierge matchmaking. But the twist was it wasn't for friends or for networking, and people only want to meet strangers for networking or for dating. And we built this for your friends. So that was a hard sell. We spent a couple months building that, got a couple hundred users, but it wasn't something people like jumping up and down to use. People were always hesitant to meet somebody. And we ended up engineering a lot of these things in that would get you super amped and jazzed about these kinds of interactions. And about a month and a half ago only, we kind of sunsetted that project and decided to instead focus on how do you just get people jazzed and super excited about meaningful social interaction. And that's kind of where Glimpse came from. It's these like effortless 2-minute video conversations. And rather than doing this with your strangers, it's with people that are relevant. So it's either with like your close friends and family, or friends of friends, or friends of family.
Interesting. So it's kind of like a viral network, but like you're expanding your network with people you already know. So there's a little bit of a more comfortable aspect to it.
Exactly. So let's say we're on Glimpse and we're matching. I enter a room of, say, Duke. The only people in the Duke room are people who've been added by others in the Duke room, which means when I see your name pop up and it says like accept within 10 seconds, I don't feel like intimidated to accept because I know somebody in there added you and it's a safe environment.
Oh, interesting. That's a cool idea. So how did you incorporate the idea of remote at your company? I mean, is it just you and Brian right now?
It's just us, and then actually not just us, and we're working with a student part-time as well, who's doing a lot of our mobile dev, and that's exciting. But in terms of, I think our involvement in, remote employment has mostly been working with companies who've had to shift to a remote employment. And we've worked with a couple in facilitating happy hours. Turns out Zoom is not the best platform for a happy hour. Or any video chat for that matter, because you have to have like a moderator, or you kind of forcibly go around and have everybody give like an update, or you all end up talking over each other. And on Glimpse, in this room of say 20 coworkers, you can have 10 conversations happening at the same time, everybody fully engaged, and then you switch, talk to someone else, and it kind of mimics a happy hour feeling way more than any group video chat will.
Interesting. I'm assuming on a happy hour would be more than 2 minutes, obviously, right? It would.
Well, the thing is, it's still 2 minutes.
Oh, it is.
And it works really, really well. Because imagine you're matched with somebody and it's a little awkward. And that's like the worst case scenario. It's awkward for like 30 seconds. Best case scenario, you're left wanting more. And then 5 or 10 minutes later, you rematch with them. And you kind of pick up the conversation where you left it off. And you can keep kind of going in circles and like weaving your way through people.
Oh, okay. It's more like a party.
Exactly.
Cool. So has the ongoing pandemic created any roadblocks or challenges that you didn't expect?
I think the only challenge I mean, a lot of challenges, but like the only like significant challenge was like our fundraising plans. We just, came out of Y Combinator, and they kind of have this like cookie cutter model of like, do this, and then there's demo day, and then you raise money, and then go be successful. Of course, kind of, with 99% still failing. But the idea of like, you can set yourself up, and then these are the things you have to do to like look appealing for investors. And like, investors are way more nervous about investing in this climate. And people aren't spending money, just in general. But I think in terms of our own growth, unfortunately and fortunately, it's been actually helpful, because companies that usually have happy hours in person, for example, are now looking for new solutions. Schools are also super interesting. Like if you think about like college freshmen who are about to start in a couple months, are going to start their college experience completely remote. And admissions and all the other departments have to like scramble and figure out, how do I make this experience social and exciting, and just as good as a completely in-person experience? And this is a great time for us to launch and offer ourselves as a solution to all of these different verticals.
Cool. So at the right place at the right time.
Yes.
and not by, wasn't something that you planned. It just kind of happened that way.
Exactly.
Cool. So there are companies like Gaper that help develop, build, and scale products, especially for startups. And you're about to experience this, I'm pretty sure. What do you think about, how important that's going to be in terms of finding quality people with the skills that you need? And you're going to need them in a hurry, especially if you do get funding. And as you know, it's really hard to find quality developers at a reasonable price in the Bay Area.
So what was the question? How do we think about scaling our team?
Yeah, I mean, have you thought of using services like Gaper for that? Or do you have enough of a network that you can scale this operation? Because you might have a lot of demand coming up in September.
Yes. So we have thought about services. We have thought about our own network. At this point, there's 3 of us, and we'll probably rely on our own network to have a good kind of start, because I think those, recruits are more of a sure bet. But then as we, scale quickly, definitely figuring out more creative solutions.
Yeah. Well, I've been through it, so I know it's when you have to hire, if you read some of these stories of companies like LinkedIn that were hiring, I don't know how many people. And I mean, I don't know if you know, Google hires about 200 new employees a week, which, it's mind boggling, but that's what they do.
Yeah.
And back in the old days, they were hiring more than that. So, well, Helena, this has been very fascinating. I wish Glimpse a lot of luck. It sounds like a really cool platform. And I want to thank you for your time today.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Have a great day.
You too.